it?
I think Ruthie's turning it off.
I thought it was the Google phone call thing, which is very.
Okay. It is 6:31 p.m. on Thursday, May 12th, 2022, and I call to order this general meeting of the Intermediate District 287 School Board. We are going to start this evening with the reading of our mission statement by Board Member Sarah Johansson.
Right, thank you. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you. And will you start the introductions and we'll just go around the table?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Johansson. I represent Wayzata.
Hi, I'm Regina Neville and I represent Edina.
I'm Crystal Brackey from Richfield Public Schools.
Shannon Andreessen representing Hopkins Public Schools.
Ruthie Dallas representing Brooklyn Center Community Schools.
Jackie Mosqueda Jones representing District 279 Osseo Area Schools.
Hi, I'm Michelle Kuntz representing Orono High School, Orono Schools.
We have several board members who are unable to be with us this evening. Ann Casey, Francesca Pagan, Umar, and Sam Sant are all unable to attend. Heidi Marty may still be joining us this evening. And we just want to extend our appreciation to all of the staff who are here with us in the boardroom and also those who are joining us online. Thank you so much for being here. We move next to approval of the general meeting agenda. And before I entertain a motion to approve the agenda, I just want to make a note for anybody who may be watching our meeting online, either live or in the future, that we have 2 closed sessions on the agenda this evening. And so the live stream will end when we get to that section of the agenda. So just want people to be aware that only part of our meeting is going to be broadcast this evening. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Regina Neville and a second by Ruthie Dallas. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Next, we have time for any community comments. I don't believe we have anybody who requested to speak with us this evening. Thank you. So we move to approval of the consent agenda containing routine business items. Unless there is an item that somebody would like removed for independent discussion, we could entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. So we have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Sarah Johansson. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. And we will move to share the success and recognitions. And I am going to turn it over to Sandy for a very special recognition this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the reason there's a very big one-word reference to recognition is because this evening the person getting the recognition isn't aware of it until I share with you who that is in the next minute or so. It just happens that NSPRA, the National School Public Relation Association, has declared School Communicators Day tomorrow. It's the very first time they've ever had this kind of acknowledgement day for school public relation professionals. And as you all know, Rachel Hicks is our Director of Communications and Public Relations. She has been for the past 7 years and has brought immeasurable value to our district. It would take way too long for me to explain her value and worth and contributions just to me alone, as we have gone through many, many situations together. But that also is true of many others you probably have no awareness of that she's worked on over those 7 years. She has really been an incredible asset for our district always, but especially this year with the many, many types of frankly, tragedies that we've been through. Without her, we would not have been able to communicate something that we never had any way of knowing how to communicate. And so tonight, I'd like to provide Rachel this certificate of appreciation, proudly presented to Rachel Hicks in recognition of the invaluable work and commitment to telling the incredible stories of our district and students, signed by Crystal and I. Let's give her a hand. And thank you for everything you've done.
Yes, truly. I feel like if there could be a shining star example of the reason why this particular day needs to exist and why I'm so glad that it is being celebrated, you would be it. So thank you so much for all that you do for this district, and I know for many others who also benefit from your talents and expertise. So thank you. All right. So with that, we are going to move to the superintendent's report. Sandy, would you like to introduce this?
Yes,
Okay.
please. Board members, over the past, well, even a year plus, we have had internal discussions, probably prompted by the pandemic, about some of our teaching and learning programs. And we also had at least one discussion in a superintendent advisory committee near the end of last year about those programs. And given the changing circumstances brought on by the pandemic, we determined that we would do a survey specific to some of those areas that frankly, we don't often talk about as much as we do some of our larger programs in special education, care and treatment, and area learning center. And although area learning center is part of this. Under John's direction, we communicated to superintendents that we would be developing a survey, a stakeholder survey, if you will, to gain their input about those programs specifically. So this is just, we're just in the step one, if you will, of gathering information, as John will tell you. It should help shape the future of those programs in the coming years. So John, thank you very much for the work done to date, and thank you for being here tonight to share the results so far.
Thank you, Dusty, and board members. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the teaching and learning programs that, as Eddie mentioned, we've had a few things to consider over the course of the last couple of years. And just as a clarification of the programs that we're looking at can loosely be defined as those that are not special ed or care and treatment. So we call them teaching and learning or academic programs, all areas. They're primarily based on student choice, some parameters for each. And so we have our area learning center academies, specific programs are listed there. Career tech, or primarily pathways program. For enrichment, we have the Destination Imagination and West Suburban summer school programs. And then online learning, we'll talk about that another time, but it is also part of the teaching. Here are some of the overall participation numbers and descriptions. For the ALC and career tech, they're largely school day options, while the enrichment programs are outside of the school day or the school year entirely. There's also some differences in revenue sources. So for the ALC, that's by regular ADM flow through. For the pathways program, there's fees that pay for student participation in those. And then the enrichment, Destination Imagination, West summer school, those are largely funded through participation fees and scholarships to allow for a wide range of participants. The Destination Imagination is a creative problem-solving tournament. We run the regional and the state tournaments for all of that, so it gets to be a pretty big operation. It's a very small number of staff. And West Suburban Summer School takes place over the course of 5 weeks in the summer. We have about 120 some courses that we offer that are specifically designed to challenge students in an area of specific focused interest. They're all day long for 5 days a week. And all of these programs have had some enrollment dips over the course of the last couple of years, and that's true across the board, I think, in every district program. So the column in there for the pre-COVID high is where they were in 2019, roughly, when things were kind of at their highest point before things started to be more difficult. And then the current participation, they've all rebounded to some extent, but they're not quite to the level that they were before. And then the numbers there are roughly the number of individual student participants. That's based on equivalence. Different. And then the member districts show how many districts have students that are participating. A little bit of scope for Destination Imagination and for Western Summer School. There are non-member participants. They higher fees. Help to round out some of the needs that we have in terms of overall funding. So that's hopefully that will be a little better. So as we start looking to the future, we seemed like this would be a good time to take stock of where we are in terms of member district needs, perspectives, ideas for improvement. Knowing that we would likely encounter some questions that we needed to answer before we could really get firm feedback, we figured that we would need a couple of iterations. Still? Oh, okay. Better now? Okay. I'll try to use my outside voice. So we plan to do this in two stages. First phase is to gather some current understandings, and then after that, when we understand a little bit more about it, to dive deeper into some of the specific questions that come up. We asked a few relatively simple questions, first of all, on awareness, satisfaction, and what further things are needed in order to provide better feedback. And then based on that, we'll approach the next phase to answer some of those questions and provide any further information that's needed. That's on the left there are the number of contacts that responded to the survey. We sent it out to 104 representatives. We got almost 50% back. And also knowing how things are at this time of year, we gave 3 weeks in order to respond. On the first layer that we looked at for awareness, we're looking at what programs your district uses, and we should add a caveat on that what programs your district uses that you're aware of, because we found that in a lot of cases, respondents didn't really know for sure about their district usage for a few valid reasons. For instance, not all counselors may need to be aware of the enrichment programs that we have. Not all enrichment contacts are going to be aware of high school programs for ALC and special ed. And then similarly, with a lot of district staff, there are a significant number of new people in positions, particularly of leadership in the last couple of years, and they just haven't had a chance to understand as much about what's going on with the urgent matters that everybody's attending to. So we realized that the awareness may not match the actual usage across the board, and one of the key things we are taking away from this is that we need to provide more information and connect with all of the people, again, who are in these positions so that we can provide better updates on the audience that programs are intended for and how students can access some of those opportunities. So similarly then, when it comes to satisfaction, there are many respondents who just couldn't say for one reason or another, a lot of the same reasons, whether they were satisfied or not satisfied with the programs. And like I said, our biggest takeaway is that we'll need to reach out more in the future with further information for everybody who's requested it. It's an easier issue to address, that if there's lack of awareness and certainty, that we can provide that information and give a little bit better understanding to determine whether we're moving in the right direction or need to make some changes. For those who are familiar with the programs, the good news is that those with an opinion are, for the large part, either highly satisfied or satisfied. So when you remove the unsure responses, the results are largely positive. And that's what this particular chart shows, is that anywhere from 70 to 85% of the respondents with an opinion are satisfied with the way the programs are operating. And not surprisingly, those are most often the people with the highest contact with the program. So the enrichment contacts are most highly satisfied with the enrichment programs, and the counselors and principals who work with the ALC are pretty highly satisfied with those as well. Some of the suggestions that have come out of this are related to some of those same areas, a need for a full review for newer leaders and staff to explain what the audiences are, and also some additional follow-up on student demographics, further information on success rates, planning that we can do to meet member district needs, and then a few things called out specifically for some of the programs that we can address or look forward to. More course offerings in pathways, more support for remediation, and some information on similar programs for the ALC, and with the enrichment programs, specifics on student demographics and what the families and students themselves are saying about their experience. One area in particular that has come up that we wanted to make sure we provided some updates on is with the West Suburban Summer School, we embarked on a 3-year racial equity plan in order to increase the participation of Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, and Asian American students in the student participation within West Suburban. And so we started last year by addressing some of the specific barriers we encountered and discovered after we did some focus groups with member district representatives, specifically the registration and eligibility requirements. We completely overhauled that so that it's open to any student with an interest in taking a challenging course. We added more scholarships so that we could remove the cost as a barrier as much as possible. And we've worked with districts on ways to provide transportation, particularly if we're running close to where there's a summer school program, that students can utilize the summer school transportation to get to one of their schools, and then we can work on getting a shuttle over from there to where the West Suburban sites are. And also considering that offering West Suburban classes in some of the school sites where summer school is also taking place. As we look ahead, a few of the areas that we definitely want to work on a little harder are recruiting more teachers of color and a more diverse course offering range, and then also expanding our student outreach so we get to a wider audience of students who might be interested in participating. And then as we move into phase 2, as I mentioned, we'll do a deeper dive on specifics. We'll provide an individual district summary to all of the member representatives who responded, and we'll set up follow-up meetings with district leadership where that was requested. At least 5 or 6 districts said this would be a really good time this summer to get together, talk to our leadership, explain more deeply about each of these, make sure we have the right people in the room who understand how to connect with the programming and the needs that we have within our district. And then in coordination with that, then that expanded outreach and feedback gathering will take place as we provide more information on demographics and student experience. I think we'll be able to get better feedback on satisfaction in areas where we need to still keep working. And then we'll extend our long-term plans based on that, continuing and expanding on our West Suburban Equity Project, expanding more course offerings for pathways, and providing more area learning center opportunities, particularly in project-based learning, which seems to have been a good source of increasing engagement over the course of the past year as students came back to in-person learning. So I'll stop if I haven't been going too fast, and offer up opportunity for any questions.
Thank you, John. Sandy, is there anything you'd like to add before we open it up for the board?
Thank you. Just that we actually have our last superintendent advisory meeting next Thursday, and John will be presenting this to superintendents at that time. So if they have other input that helps, modify what we do next, we certainly will be listening to them. But I think right now our main goal is presenting it to you, so you're aware that we are looking at these programs for any future direction.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Regina?
Thank you, John. Great information and background. I wanted to ask a question about the West Suburban Summer School Program, and you referenced hoping to recruit more teachers of color, which is fantastic. I'm curious if we are currently able to retain current teachers of color to balance both the recruitment and the retention.
Yes, the numbers are fairly small, but we have across the board had pretty good teacher retention in that program. But to the extent that we identify areas for recruitment, I think that's the best way we're going to increase the diversity of the course offerings too. So we've met with a few of the colleges that offer education programs to try to identify teachers that might want to come and do an internship or some kind of experience to understand it during this summer before they start teaching an actual course themselves. The best recruitment strategy has basically been to make it clear that this is an opportunity to teach something you're really interested in and you really love, and you really just want to spend a whole week doing just that one topic, like mock trial or strategy games or diving adventures or things like that.
Thank you. Sarah?
I'll add too, just on West Suburban Summer School, the change in the registration process, if I put on my parent hat a minute, the change in the registration process was really helpful. And I think
Okay.
about the number of parents that, it was a set your alarm and get up and then hope that you could get your credit card in before it timed you out. And so the way that it's happened now is just, it's really helpful. So thank you for that.
Michelle?
If you indulge me a little anecdote, it just so happens that my now 39-year-old daughter took a class at West Suburban Summer School in the day. It was murder mystery time, and the author who was helping the students write this murder mystery had a letter that she sent home saying that if the book would ever be published, here we go, she would give them 2% of her income.
Oh, wow.
So I found this letter just this past weekend, and all these memories started coming back, and here we are, and I'm so happy that the program is still around because it helped my child, then the other one too, and yeah, it was really, really well done, and thank you for going through all this work to make it even better. So, thanks, John.
Welcome. Thank you.
That's neat, Michelle. The one thing or two things. One is I appreciate just the thoughtfulness around going to our constituents and communities and asking what are their experiences, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, and I just think how to bring students into some of that potentially as well, because I feel like they have an exceptional sense of the strengths and the areas for growth in their education. And it just seems like a really good way to think about it from like a communication strategy point of view. How are we talking about these programs? How are we improving these programs? And how are we bringing more people into them? So I'm just excited about that. And then just especially wanted to appreciate the continued focus on racial equity in the West Suburban Summer School program. That has been one of the biggest concerns of my member district. And so I appreciate that that is a continued area of focus and something that obviously requires sustained focus to really see the type of change that we want to see. So I just wanted to commend everybody for continuing that work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you so much, John.
You're welcome.
With that, we will move on to the Business Services and Labor Relations report. And this evening, the one item we have in this section of the agenda is approval of routine monthly finance report being presented by May Hawkins, our Executive Director of Business Services.
Good evening, Board Chair and Board members. So before I begin my March monthly report, I wanted to let you know about a new audit requirement. And I'm just going to give you a little heads up. Starting with this year's upcoming year's audit, Jim Eichten, our partner from MMKR, will be required to send an audit planning letter to all the board members. So that's a new requirement that he has to follow. Historically, that communication was done verbally with just the board chair, but now he needs to send a letter to all of you about how are they planning for the upcoming audit. And I didn't want you to get a letter from the auditor, right? And go, what is this, right? So I just wanted to give you a heads up about that.
Thank you.
So moving on to our March monthly report. This is the end of our third quarter. A reminder that all monthly reports are on a cash basis. So our revenues were at 62.7% of budget. That's between our two prior years percentages. Our expenditures were at 64.8% of budget, which is slightly higher than the prior 2 years percentages. Investments totaled $17,969,686, which included earned interest of $2,908. And our cash is slightly above our two prior year balances. The ALC ADMs were 224.51, which is 55 ADMs below our budget and 50 ADMs below prior year. NSO ADMs totaled 734.14. Just a quick note that for some areas of NSO, the ADMs are reported at the end of the quarter or the semester, and we're obviously in the middle of the semester. So that is 111 ADMs below their budget and 285 ADMs above where they were last year. Career and Tech Pathways ADMs were 79.84, which is 25 ADMs below budget and 16 ADMs higher than last year. Special Education ADMs were 436, which is 59 ADMs under budget and 44 below last year. Care and Treatment ADMs totaled 111, which is 49 ADMs below budget and 31 below last year. The donations for the month of March included cash donations of $2,020 for West Suburban Summer School scholarships, $637.24 for South Education Center Aftercare and Wellness Fund for SEC students and staff through our Give Minnesota campaign. And big thanks to our community for their ongoing support. Are there any questions before the board approves the March report?
Table. I don't see any questions or comments today. Is there a motion to approve the March 2022 monthly financial report? I will give the motion to Michelle Coons and the second to Ruthie Dallas. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the finance report is approved. So we have now reached the portion of the agenda that I referenced when we began, which is 2 closed sessions. And obviously, the board can only hold closed sessions for very specific topics that are allowable under Minnesota state statute. So the first closed session is pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05, subdivision 3D. The board may close the meeting to receive security briefings and reports, to discuss issues related to district site security systems and emergency response procedures implemented at the South Education Center on February 1st, 2022, because disclosure of this information in an open meeting may compromise security procedures or responses. Is there a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Regina Neville and a second by Sarah Johansson. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and after a very brief recess to close the room, we will move into closed session. Thank you.
Just remind them to pull their mics close if they haven't already.
different beings.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. But they're really
A few more things.
Fantastic.
They are. It's a nice
So,
blend of like
what we
still a
can do, 'cause
kid,
we're having
but
trouble
Yep.
getting our old lights
like
on.
emerging.
Oh, good.
Never mind.
Okay.
What we do is come up with a
Yes.
solution.
Love it.
Mostly
That was
she
the
kinda
key right
turned
there.
in her
Okay,
six-
it is 10:18 PM. We are back in open session with just a couple more items on our agenda. Next is scheduling the meeting for board review of SEIU Local 284 grievance. So I'll just share information about this before we take the action item. SEIU Local 284 represents administrative support, facilities, and food service staff. The local filed a grievance on behalf of 9 members of the facilities team on March 4th. The grievance has been through the first 3 levels of the grievance procedure without a settlement, and the grievance have requested to move to the next level, which is a conference with members of the school board. The Local 284 contract states, at its next meeting, the school board shall set a time for a conference of the employee with a committee or representatives of the school board, which conference shall take place within 15 days of the board meeting. So for this conference, representatives of the board will be the 4 members of the executive committee. The parties have all agreed to a time and date for the conference, which we will now formally schedule through board action. So I would entertain a motion to schedule the conference for May 25th from 10 to 11 a.m.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle Coons and a second by Regina Neville. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the conference is scheduled. Next is just some quick information about the superintendent evaluation process, because it is that time of year. And though, yes, Sandy is retiring, I think it is incredibly important for us to still really reflect on the last year and what it has been for you as a leader and the impact that you have had this year at 287. And so how we do the superintendent evaluation process is that Juanine will send out a Google survey to board members to complete. And then that information is shared back, and we go into closed session as allowed by statute to share and discuss that information with Sandy. And then as required, do a summary at the public meeting that follows, the next public meeting, excuse me. So just want people to know that we are going to engage in that process. So you'll be getting the information from Juanine, and then we will have the actual discussion at one of our 2 meetings in June. I'm not sure yet which one it will be. So June 6th, thank you. Any questions about that? Okay. June 9th. I should remember, it's my birthday. We're gonna have a good time.
All right.
And I will make sure that the board members who are not here also get that information. The AMSD Connections newsletter is in the board packet for those of you that would like to check that out. Moving into district news, just a couple of things on the calendars that I wanted to point people's attention to. One is that there are some important retirement celebrations to make sure that you have on your calendar. One is for Sandy, and that will be taking place, I'm pulling it up to make sure I have the date exactly correct, on Thursday, the 19th. And you should have also received an email invite to that. So please make sure that you RSVP. Hopefully everyone is able to attend. The other item is the district-wide retirement celebration, which will be on Thursday, the 26th, actually the hour prior to our board meeting that evening. So at 5:30 here at the District Service Center. So please also mark that in your calendars if you are able to attend. Yeah, go ahead.
Date was that?
That is Thursday, the 26th of May.
26th. Okay, thank you.
And then finally, added into the school board calendar are all of the graduation celebrations for our programs. And as you can see, there's a very large list of them. It is an absolutely wonderful experience to celebrate with our students, with our staff. And so please do look at that list, which is in the school board calendar document in board briefs, and then let Juanine know What, if any, of those you are able to attend, just so that the staff is aware and can obviously plan for us to be present to the extent that we are able to do so. Anything that I missed in that one, Ian? I think I got it all. Okay. We move to the last, once around the table, time for board members to share anything that they would like with one another. All right, I don't see or hear anything this evening, so we come to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Jackie Mosqueda Jones and a second by Regina Neville. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the meeting is adjourned at 10:24 PM. Thank you, everybody. Sleep well, Jackie. Good luck, especially to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie, for being here and sticking with it.
The third night.
It's rough.
I meant to tell you after.
Just so you know, it's the last year.
And I went out.
What? How far?
To sign up for
You
which
have
one
to
to
drive
go to.
Yeah. Very nice young man, all dressed up in his suit, and briefcase,
20 minutes.
walked up to me, thanked me for the testimony and said he and his wife are parents who live right behind us.
Okay.